Engine rebuilding, what do you do and how much is too much? So as our cars age and sit and age some more, sometimes the question of how to rebuild an engine is apparent. You know, it's going to be a big question that people are going to ask. And if the car sat for a long time, that might be necessary. And if the engine has been rebuilt in the past by somebody who didn't know what they were doing, it might be an even more pertinent issue. This also stretches to valve jobs and other jobs on Mercedes that are pretty important jobs. So this is basically going to be a video about what to do and what not to do when rebuilding your Mercedes engine and how much it is going to cost you. So based on what I have learned in my lifetime working on these cars, Mercedes engines are expensive to rebuild. They can't be rebuilt for $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000. The cheapest engine rebuild I've ever gotten away with was pretty close to $5,000 on an 81 240D. And that was with piston, cylinder liners, etc. A good engine rebuild on a 6-cylinder gas Mercedes, 9 times out of 10, constitutes a set of pistons, piston rings, cylinder liners, valve guides, valves, timing chain, and possibly oil pump, and of course a major gasket set and possibly crankshaft work if necessary. There will also probably be welding done to the cylinder head to repair any corrosion done from coolant in the past, and items like connecting rods need to be resized and weighed to make sure that they are all perfectly true and straight and within 5 grams of each other. Why is this important? Well, all of these factors add up to an engine that doesn't use oil, doesn't leak oil, has perfect compression, makes good levels of power, and is going to run well for 200 or 300,000 miles. One of the biggest problems with these early 6-cylinder gas engines is that they revved so high it would cause engine wear that you know, you just couldn't deal with by putting a set of rings in. If your cylinder liners are worn out, they're worn out. Now, the 123 diesels, especially the 123 turbo diesels, are a little tougher. But if you have a 350 or 400,000 mile 300D turbo, it's going to need pistons, and it's probably going to need liners, and it's certainly going to need at least the exhaust valves replaced. I don't see a lot of 350,000 mile engines that have almost no wear. But I mean, if the engine's running well, you shouldn't take it apart and rebuild it either, just for fun. I think that if you have to take an engine apart and something goes wrong, the main thing is to make everything as close to factory new as it could be without taking any shortcuts. And of course, this gets expensive. So the average price of building a 617 engine, depending on who you're working with and what happened, could be anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000. Does that upset you? Well, you're building an engine that was supposed to go for 500,000 miles. So in the grand scheme of things, if you went into the Hyundai dealership to buy a brand new engine for your Hyundai Sonata, you'd probably pay comparable money. Now, other Mercedes engines tend to do a lot better. The V8 engines with their hard cylinder liners and their very tough forged pistons almost never need piston or liner replacement. They may need rings and bearings and valve guides and even valves, but you know, unless you've overheated the engine miserably, they tend to do pretty well. With the V8 engines, you should put helicoils in all of the helicoils, or you should repair the threads, we should say, because I know that my friend Jack Rosenfeld likes time certs, but generally most machinists use helicoils to anchor the cylinder head bolts. Earlier engines, such as the M189 engine, will need extensive work because they're aluminum, and engines like the M189 engine or 6.3 engine just have an extremely high parts cost. Doing a valve job on a 6.3 is a $6,000 affair. Doing a valve job on an M189 engine is you know, comparable at $6,000 to $7,000, and parts for these things don't come cheap. But the good news is that some of the less expensive Mercedes engines, such as the M180 engine, you can still get reasonably affordable parts out there. Now, what do you do if you can't get some stuff? Well, when I can't get pistons, for example, pistons are a big deal. I contact a company in Germany called Wahl, W-A-H-L, Specialkolben, in the Fellbach area, and they will make a set of pistons for me. I know that some of you might use companies like JE or Wisco, but I just don't think that Americans should be making pistons for German engines. Sorry if you think that I'm an elitist snob, but I don't feel like taking an engine apart. One time I had a friend who had a JE piston in his 3.5 sedan, and the piston was just a little too ovular and made all kinds of funny noises when it reached 30,000 miles. So there are some other things you should know too. If you're taking your head off and you have a gas Mercedes and it has 50,000 miles or more, you need to check out the valve guides. You need to be replacing valve stem seals. You can't just pull the head off, put a head gasket on, put it back together, and away you go. It's not that simple. You should be checking cylinder heads for corrosion. You should be making sure that every single part in that engine is 100%, like the timing chain. Never recycle a timing chain, Anyway, I guess we've gone on and on and on about this stuff, but I think you get the gist of it. Don't cut any corners. Pick a reputable rebuilder who actually has experience with Mercedes engines, uses the technical data manual, has proven themselves as a machinist to other people. Don't just pick any guy who's rebuilding engines in his basement. And finally, don't expect to get away cheap. If a person underquotes you for a job, you need to see an itemized list of what they're actually doing. And if they say, oh, we're just going to replace one of the valve guides because only one is worn. No, you want to do all of them. You want to make sure that everything is 100%. Anyway, for more information on engine rebuilding, drop us a line. We'll be happy to help. And in the meantime, like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Please consider supporting us on Patreon. And in the meantime, take great care of that classic Mercedes.